Larry Taylor here with the Word in Focus, doing a little series that I call Myth Busters. Yet another myth that I hear related to the COVID-19 pandemic is the idea that wearing a mask either doesn't do any good or is an infringement on my personal rights. We have a big problem in the United States of America, and that problem is related to several things. First, it's related to the fact that if we do not have a trusted source of information, public information, as for example in Great Britain has a trusted source of information, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. They have freedom of the press. They also have a trusted source of information. And in this country, up until very recently, we had a trusted source of information. We had the Associated Press and the three major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, and all of them, individually and collectively, were, and they still are, trusted sources of information. But now in America, we have all these other voices coming in. Some of them are hacked in from Russia. Some of them are woven in from other hostile places. Others come from within. And now we have all this stuff that is presented as factual information, which is blatantly false. And of course, a big part of that problem, although not the cause of it, is that Donald Trump has been throughout his public life spreading lies, false information. Whether you like him or not, whether you like his policies or not, that is the truth. And so, as believers, again, we should not be a part of that. We should not be subject to it. We should not be spreading those things. We need to make sure that we get our information from genuine, reliable sources. And you can do that. You can read the articles from the Associated Press. You can read the articles from the trusted mainstream newspapers and from the three major networks. They're still around. You can read, you have access, free access to the BBC. You can tap into the German national media and so forth. We have access to legitimate information. And especially as believers, that's where we should be getting our information from. And not that everything 100% that comes from them, they've got it right. And there may be various interpretations, but the basic information, if it's coming from those sources, is probably accurate. And if it isn't, they will correct it. Because one of the marks of a trusted organization is that it comes back later and says, we made a mistake. We called this person by the wrong name, or we got the wrong date, or we erroneously said this. That's a good thing. The other big problem that confronts us in the United States, and this is historic, is our sense of rugged individualism. And based on ideas that were started in the Enlightenment, we have this idea that I'm free to do whatever I want to do. So when it comes to wearing a mask, for example, you can't tell me not that I have to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm free. I don't live in China, that kind of thing. Individual freedom, even from an Enlightenment point of view, even if you could bring John Locke back and interview him, he would say that, yes, individual freedom is extremely important and should be granted to everyone as long as it does not harm the common good. Now, as a follower of Jesus, I'm called to love my neighbor. A simple act of love that I can do for my neighbor is to wear a mask every time I go out. It cuts down their risk of swapping air with me and thereby being exposed to a virus that I may have and not know that I have. But for them, it may be deadly. If they would care enough to also wear a mask, our mutual risk would drop way down. So, it's a simple thing. It's not a matter of interfering with your rights. I'm an American. I have a right to do whatever I want to do. Well, no, you don't. You don't have the right in the middle of a crowded theater to yell fire so that people get tramped to death when there is no fire. Freedom of speech, freedom of action is limited, and we ought to willingly limit it in response to the common good. And when it comes to a pandemic like COVID-19, or even something like the seasonal influenza, which also can be deadly, we can take simple steps and look at them not as infringements on our own personal rights, but as something that I can do for the good of others. Thanks for joining me.